It was time to get back to editing the next round of Fruit Bearers interviews, and the first guest directly addressed something we've touched on here and there throughout the years: the powerful attraction of various sports, despite their pagan origins.
Got some open field. He's tackled at about the 35. So they go on the ground and pick up another first down.
They are stringing together a nice little drive here. If they keep this up, it'll be hard to keep them out of the end zone.
Because I had let sports determine my countenance. I let sports sort of determine how I felt and who I was. And without it, I was struggling.
I was thrilled to have this guest on because he was a longtime visitor to the website who was blessed by the content and was ready to share his own story. He revealed that he and his wife had heard all the past Fruit Bearer podcasts, and I had to let him know how impacting the show has been to others.
And it's to the benefit of many, many people around the world. I get so much feedback from people who feel like their story is being told too, viscerally through someone else, and they can identify, and it actually helps people in their walk, because there are people in Sweden I've heard from, there are people isolated way out in the country in Canada, in the sticks where nobody else is around to fellowship with. So these are literally outlets for them that can actually cause them to anchor and get deeper in their faith, knowing someone else is out there walking the same walk.
All praises, all praises.
You're listening to Fruit Bearers, a living Hebrew production provided by KingdomPreppers.org. I'm your host, Kingdom Prepper. This podcast will focus on the spiritual walk of those of you out there who are living the Israelite lifestyle, whether you were born Hebrew or Gentile. But more than that, it will detail how the faithful have been, or are striving to be, fruit bearers as they walk the path of righteousness toward the kingdom. Return to our next guest.
My name is Michael J. So I grew up in Kentucky. I've always been in Kentucky from a child. I've lived here, traveled out occasionally, but was always in the state. As a kid, it was the one big thing for me was sports, watching sports, playing sports. It's a really big thing in the South and a lot of Southern states, especially with football. So for me, football was basically like a religion to me. It seemed I played it religiously. I idolized a lot of football players. I wanted to personally be idolized myself, which is one big thing that I feel like a lot of athletes are pushed to do. You want to be so good that eventually you become one of those idols that people seemingly worship. You want the kids to come up and ask you for autographs, and you want the people to chant your name. That's what you sort of strive for. That's almost a pinnacle of success when it comes to athletics. So that was always, as a kid, even as a very young kid, I always had that desire to be a great athlete. When it comes to my spiritual journey, it was very, as a lot of people are, you get sort of introduced to the general idea of praying to God, praying before meals, but really nothing substantive. We kept Christmas, we kept all the holidays, and my mom, I think she would proclaim herself to be a Christian, but we never really went to church. My pawpaw, my dad's dad, he was a deacon at the church, so he was very heavy into Christianity, very devout, and that was definitely something that he took pride in. So since my dad was raised in that household, he saw sort of the positives and negatives of Christianity. And for him, that led him to, when I was a child, him being in the Nation of Islam. And I don't know exactly how he got introduced to it, but he was a part of the Nation of Islam, and I would go back into the back room of our house, and he would be doing his daily prayers. And I never really understood why. I never really understood it. It was really confusing to me because my mom was not a Muslim. She just kept the regular holidays, and my dad was doing this thing. He was reading the Quran. He was talking with certain people. at his barbershop because he was a barber, so he was always talking with different people. And whenever I was at the barbershop, I got just a small glimpse of, I guess, what they were talking about, which at the time I'm very young. I'm maybe 5, 6, so I didn't really understand. Around that time also, I had some cousins, and their parents went to church. So I would go over to my cousin's house, and, we'd be playing video games all night, but then Sunday morning we had to go to church. So that was sort of the caveat. So I could go and have fun with my cousins on Saturday, but Sunday morning was always going to be, I had to bring a church shirt over, church shoes over, and we'd be going to church. And always in the morning we'd get some bacon, some pork bacon, and some waffles. So I always looked forward to that as a kid. And, looking at the irony of that, the hypocrisy of that, it's almost, I don't know, it's just a testament to sort of how much I didn't understand at that time. But again, it was something where I just went occasionally. It wasn't every single week, but those were the closest cousins that I had in age. You're sitting in church. It was a Baptist church, and a lot of times I was just really tired. I'll be in there super tired. You might get some candy from, the lady who's sitting in front or beside you just so you can try to stay up. You get the little brochure thing. I used to draw on the little brochure, but I never really understood what they were talking about. I mean, it's a lot of people singing, people dancing, organ playing. You got to stand up and do the prayers and do this and that. And I never really understood, but I went and I would go, and, after that we eat. So I always look forward to eating after church, which led me to another instance that sort of intertwined my home life with going to church, which was when my dad was talking about not eating pork, because in Islam they don't eat pork. So he said, when you go to church the next time, ask someone at the church, why do they eat pork even though it's unclean? I'm like maybe 7 or 8 years old at the time. So I'm really dreading having this responsibility of having to go in there and ask this question. But it was on my mind. So I'm really sort of anxious about it. I didn't really tell anybody that I was going to do it. But I went over to my cousin's house on Saturday, woke up in the morning, went to church, and I was at Sunday school. And I think it was the woman who was doing the Sunday school class. And I asked her, so why, if the Bible says that pork is unclean, why do we eat pork? And she said, when Jesus died, he made everything clean. So that was the answer that I got. For me personally, I'm just a kid. I'm like, well, okay, that's enough for me. So, you go and get the green beans with the pork in them, and, they might have some ham. You know what I'm saying? So I will go through with that. My dad at home, he didn't let us eat pork. And it wasn't because he was, observing the Torah intentionally. It was more because he was following the religion of Islam. But his reasoning never really made sense to me. And frankly, I didn't really care too much when it came to whether pork was clean or not, because there was really no foundation. I didn't see why it was important. But fast forward, my main focus was sports. Every Saturday, I'm playing sports, specifically football. I was a quarterback ever since I was a kid, and it was something that, for me, I really took pride in. My parents really took pride in. Every Saturday, we had a football game. And knowing now that is the Shabbat, it was sort of something that, I understood why there was turmoil. I see how, intentionally pagan having sport on those days is, but at that time, that was all that I really cared about. I went through the whole school week just to look forward to my game on Saturday. And, we would win state championships, we would go to national tournaments, and that was really something that, I really wanted to be one of those big football players on TV. That was what I sort of really, envisioned myself doing.
To listen to the full audio of this podcast or to download a free MP3 version, visit our website, kingdompreppers.org, by clicking the link in the description.